The moment I saw my name listed between laboratory equipment and corporate debt, I realized I hadn't been hired. I had been sold. The conference room was made entirely of glass, like someone had wanted to be absolutely sure there would be nowhere to hide. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a gray city soaked in rain. Skyscrapers dissolved into fog. Drops crawled down the glass like slow, exhausted insects. Cold light spilled across a long white table, too clean, too empty, reflecting the ceiling lamps in a way that made my eyes ache. I had arrived 40 minutes early, a lifelong habit of people who are paid to clean up other people's disasters. My briefcase sat unopened at my feet. My reflection hovered in the glass. Neat suit, restrained tie, dark circles under my eyes I no longer bothered hiding. Patrick Hale, Director of Restructuring, Family Problem Solver, Corporate Mortician. The door slid open without a sound. Lawyers came first. 2 men, 1 woman. Identical gray suits. Identical neutral faces. Behind them, several silent managers from the branch. No introductions, no small talk, just the soft scrape of chairs and the hum of the building. A tablet slid across the table toward me. Preliminary documentation, one of the lawyers said. I expected balance sheets, asset inventories, closure schedules. I didn't expect a purchase agreement. My fingers hesitated before touching the screen. A faint buzzing filled my ears as I scrolled. Property, patents, equipment, outstanding liabilities. And then, Human Operational Unit, Patrick Hale. I blinked once. Then again, the letters didn't move, didn't soften, didn't turn into something less obscene. For a second, the room tilted. Not enough to fall, just enough to remind me I had a body. Dryness spread across my mouth. I swallowed. Nothing happened. Is this a joke? I asked quietly. No one answered. Pressure built behind my sternum, like someone had pressed a thumb into my chest and refused to move it. My heartbeat sounded wrong in my head. Too loud, too fast. There was a faint smell in the room I couldn't place. Something sharp, metallic, not unpleasant, not familiar. The doors opened again. This time, the air changed. He walked in like he owned the gravity. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark coat over a perfectly cut suit, black hair brushed back from a sharp, controlled face. His presence pulled focus without effort, the way storms pull the horizon. Richard Vale, CEO of Vale Consolidated, the man whose corporation specialized in acquiring toxic assets. His gaze found me instantly, not curious, assessing. He took the empty chair at the head of the table, crossed his hands, waited until the room stilled around him. Mr. Hale, he said. His voice was calm, low, unhurried. You're earlier than expected. Habit, I replied. My own voice sounded too thin in my ears. His eyes flicked to the tablet in front of me. Understanding sharpened his expression by a fraction. You're the controller, he said. I let out a short breath that almost laughed. Today, I said. I'm not entirely sure what I am. One corner of his mouth twitched. Not a smile. More like the ghost of the idea. Usually, Richard Vale said, assets don't get confused about their role. The word landed harder than it should have. I looked back down at the contract, at the neat, typed reduction of my life, between centrifuges and outstanding debt, between buildings and broken projects. My name, and in the hollow glass heart of a building that no longer belonged to my family, with rain blurring the city and unfamiliar scents in the air, the last illusion quietly collapsed. I hadn't come here to manage a sale. I had come here as part of it. The temporary apartments Vale Consolidated had assigned me were as neutral as a hotel room designed by a committee afraid of emotions. Gray walls, black furniture, a single abstract painting that looked like it had given up halfway through becoming something. The windows stretched from floor to ceiling, opening onto the same rain-soaked city. Neon bled softly through the mist. Somewhere below, traffic whispered like a restless animal. I didn't turn on the main lights. The dark was easier. My tablet vibrated on the table. Family. I let it buzz twice before answering. My mother's face filled the screen. perfectly framed, perfectly lit. She was in her home office, dark wood shelves, awards, photos that carefully avoided anything resembling affection. "Patrick," she said warmly, "practiced. You arrived safely." "Yes," I replied, automatic, polite, "good." We were worried about the transition. "This branch is complicated, complicated." I watched her lips form the word and thought of my name typed under Human Operational Unit. "Is that what we're calling it?" I asked. A brief pause. "Not surprise. Calculation. Don't start like this," she said gently. "You knew this assignment would be different." Different. Images rose uninvited. A failing biotech firm in Chicago. Me, 23, working through nights thick with disinfectant and quiet despair. Shutting it down piece by piece. A logistics company in Montreal. Bankruptcy disguised as restructuring. Watching people pack their desks while thanking me for saving what could be saved. Each time, the same line. "You're good at this. You're strong enough to handle it. We trust you." "I knew you'd send me somewhere broken," I said. "I didn't know you'd sell me with it." Her expression didn't change, but something cooled behind her eyes. "Don't be dramatic," she replied. "No one sold you. We transferred operational oversight as part of the acquisition. You're essential to stabilizing the asset." "The asset," I repeated quietly. "Yes," she said. "This is exactly what you were trained for. Trained, not protected, not supported, prepared. To go where no one else wanted to go," she continued. "To deal with situations others can't handle. That's your role in this family, Patrick. You make problems disappear." A faint smile. "And you're very good at it." My fingers curled against my palm. In the reflection of the dark window behind the screen, I saw myself, tall still, a ghost layered over city lights. A man-shaped absence. "You never once," I said, "sent me somewhere that could be saved." Another pause. Longer this time, because that would have been a waste of your abilities. The call ended politely, efficiently. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the quiet hum of the building. The city glowed without caring. A presence shifted near the doorway. Richard Vale hadn't announced himself. He leaned against the frame, coat unbuttoned, expression unreadable. He must have heard enough. He said nothing. Neither did I, because in the hollow space the call had left behind, a simple, unbearable clarity settled in. They had never been trying to protect me from broken things. They had been training me to live among them. The branch introduced itself the way crime scenes do. Slowly, carefully, with too many clean surfaces. Mara took over my orientation like she'd been waiting all morning for an excuse to walk fast and talk faster. She was sharp-featured, copper-haired, dressed in the kind of practical elegance that said she fought systems for a living. "Welcome to the failure," she said, swiping her badge at the first security gate. "Try not to touch anything. Half of it's under investigation, and the other half should be—" "That's comforting," I replied. "You'll get used to it," she said, "or you'll start drinking." 50-50. The lobby was vast and nearly empty. Light poured down from a glass ceiling onto polished stone floors. Too much space for too few people. Voices echoed where they shouldn't have. Security stations flanked every corridor. The guards weren't human. They wore human suits. Black. Perfectly tailored, but something about the way they stood, too still, too balanced, set my nerves humming. When one of them glanced at me, a strange awareness brushed my skin, like static before a storm. Mara didn't react. I did. We passed accounting. A glass-walled cube full of people pretending numbers were neutral. Inside, Jonah rose from his desk so abruptly he knocked his knee into it. "You must be Patrick," he said, already sweating. "I'm legal. Corporate legal, branch legal. Mostly damage control." "Mostly?" I asked. He laughed. Immediately regretted it. Mara smirked and kept walking. The elevators required 3 separate clearances. 2 for the floors. 1 for the person. My badge chimed red when I tried to follow her into the central lift. "Oh," she said lightly. "Yeah." You don't have access to that. To accounting? To what's under accounting, she corrected. The lift doors slid shut, leaving me staring at my own faint reflection in the metal. When they reopened, we took a different route. Lower ceilings, dimmer light, corridors that smelled faintly of antiseptic, and something warmer beneath it. Something coppery. The sensation returned, pressure behind my ribs, a subtle heat under my skin. This doesn't look like a bankrupt logistics branch, I murmured. Mara shot me a sideways glance. No, she agreed. It doesn't. We met Dr. Klein outside a lab corridor that required both her clearance and a biometric scan from him. He was older, silver-haired, and radiated the kind of calm usually found in people who either meditated a lot or buried a lot. Restructuring, he said thoughtfully when introduced. How interesting. That's one word, I replied. He smiled, not with his eyes. I look forward to working with you, Mr. Hale. The labs themselves were mostly hidden. Frosted glass, opaque walls, cables vanishing into places not listed on any directory. On the way back up, I realized something small and unpleasant. We had walked in loops. Every corridor subtly different. Every sign technically correct. And yet, if I hadn't been paying attention, I wouldn't have been able to retrace a single step. By the time we returned to the main floor, my professional curiosity had fully woken. And beneath it, something colder. This place wasn't dying. It was molting. Richard Vale's office was positioned like a command bridge. Glass on three sides. The city stretched behind him in steel and fog, as if he were seated at the center of a slow, obedient storm. No clutter, no personal items, only a wide black desk, embedded screens, and a single chair placed precisely where a visitor would feel the imbalance. I didn't sit. Richard noticed. You've already requested 6 internal reports, he said, fingers steepled, and tried to access 3 restricted sectors. 4, I corrected. The 4th was blocked before the request logged. A flicker of interest crossed his eyes. Why, he asked calmly, is a restructuring director trying to map a facility he's here to close? Because closures fail when you don't understand what's being hidden, I replied. And this branch hides very well. Silence stretched between us. Not empty. Waited. You're not here to investigate, Richard said. You're here to manage optics, liquidate what's left, and stabilize personnel until the legal transfer is complete. Am the first? I asked. Because the documents I was shown suggest I'm here to be liquidated with it. His jaw tightened. Watch your phrasing. Watch your contracts. We moved to the negotiation room. Glass walls. White table. The same sterile geometry as the conference hall. Only this time there were no lawyers to soften the edges. Richard activated a privacy screen. The glass fogged over, sealing us into a pale, suspended box. I don't like unknowns, he said, and I don't buy coincidences. Your family has a reputation for packaging liabilities in polite suits. Funny, I said. From where I'm standing, your corporation specializes in buying rot and calling it innovation. His gaze sharpened. You're here to control damage, he said. I'm here to control you. A pulse of heat passed through me at the words. Irritation, something else, buried under it. I don't function well as an accessory, I replied, and I don't trust executives who refuse to define what they own. I own this branch. For now, I said. And you own several departments that don't appear on any financial registry. That earned me my first real reaction. He leaned forward slightly. A predator's adjustment. Subtle. Measured. You're overreaching. You're underreporting. We held each other's gaze. The glass walls hummed faintly around us. The air felt thicker, charged with something that wasn't entirely hostility. You'll be given limited access, Richard said. What you need. Nothing more. And if what I need is what you're hiding, then, he said softly, you won't need it for long. The threat was elegant, controlled, almost gentle. I straightened my jacket. Then I suggest you start checking my work, I said. Because I've already started checking yours. For a moment, something like a smile threatened his mouth. Good, he said. I prefer my liabilities responsive. As I left his office, the strange pressure behind my ribs returned. And for the first time, I understood the shape of the game. Richard Vale was evaluating me as a potential problem, and I had begun evaluating him as a system. The elevator stalled between floors. Not enough to panic anyone sensible, just enough to notice. The lights flickered once. The soft instrumental music stuttered, then resumed, as if embarrassed. I was alone, reviewing a restricted personnel file I technically wasn't supposed to have when a wave of heat rolled through me without warning. Not emotional heat. Physical. It bloomed under my ribs and spread fast, up my throat, behind my eyes, down my spine. The screen blurred. My stomach dipped, like the first drop of a roller coaster. I exhaled sharply. The air smelled wrong. Not wrong exactly. Sharper. Layered. Something clean underneath something wild. The doors slid open. Laboratory corridor. White. Too white. Sterile to the point of hostility. Soft blue lighting traced the floor. A faint mechanical hum vibrated through the walls. I took one step. The world tilted. My vision tunneled. Sound thickened. The heat spiked, sudden and disorienting. My knees buckled with humiliating efficiency. Hands caught me before I hit the floor. Strong, steady, warm, careful, a voice said. Richards. My brain took a full second too long to register that fact. His grip was firm around my arm. His other hand braced at my back, fingers splayed like he expected gravity to argue. For a moment, I was close enough to notice details I hadn't before. The faint line at the corner of his mouth, the way his breath smelled of coffee and something darker. The unfamiliar scent sharpened again, and my body reacted like it had been waiting for a cue. Heat surged. My pulse stuttered. It was deeply inconvenient. I don't usually collapse on executives, I said, forcing the words out through a mouth that had gone oddly dry. Try not to take it personally. His brow furrowed. You're burning up. Occupational hazard, I muttered. He didn't release me immediately. His gaze searched my face, something like concern threading through the calculation. We're going to medical, he said. I'm fine. You're shaking. I became aggressively aware of the fact that I was, in fact, shaking. The med unit was tucked between two research wings. Cool air, soft lights, the faintest antiseptic smell. Mercifully familiar. A nurse ran a scanner over my wrist, another across my neck. Vitals appeared on a wall screen. Green. Heart rate elevated. Temperature slightly above baseline. Oxygen normal. Neurological response normal. Nothing abnormal, she said. I stared at the display. Define abnormal. She smiled politely. The kind reserved for people who either lied often or passed out rarely. Richard folded his arms. You nearly dropped in a restricted corridor, he said. That's abnormal enough for me. I pushed myself off the edge of the exam table. Too quickly. The room swayed, then settled. I don't have a history of fainting, I said. Or dramatic episodes. Or whatever this was. His gaze lingered. You reacted, he said. To what? He hesitated. The silence between us thickened. The air still felt charged, like static after a storm. My skin prickled where he'd touched me. I don't know, he said finally. Neither did I. But as I walked back into the corridor, heartbeat still too loud in my ears, one thing was painfully clear. My body had recognized something my mind had not, and it was paying far too much attention to Richard Vale. By 9 p.m., the branch belonged to machines. Lights dimmed automatically, leaving most offices in soft half-darkness. Cleaning drones whispered across polished floors. Somewhere deep in the building, systems pulsed and recalibrated like a sleeping animal. Accounting never slept. I sat in an empty workstation bay, jacket draped over the back of a chair, sleeves rolled up. 4 screens glowed in front of me. Cash flow, donor allocations, subsidiary transfers, internal procurement. At first glance, it was beautiful. Elegant. Balanced. Every loss matched with a gain. Every red number buffered by 3 black ones. Someone had spent a long time making this look clean. I started with redundancies, repeated payments under different project names, logistics loops that went nowhere, shell departments billing each other for consulting services that never touched payroll. Then the donor funds. They were buried deep, tucked between research grants and insurance pools. Dozens of them, small on paper, negligible percentages. Together, they formed a river. Each fund paid into projects that technically didn't exist. Each project consumed resources that never appeared in output reports, and each had a personnel column marked NA, not zero, not vacant, not outsourced, not applicable. Someone knocked lightly on the glass. Mara stepped inside without waiting. "Jonah said you'd still be here," she said. "He used the word doomed." "Optimistic," I replied. She leaned against the desk, eyes scanning the displays. "You're not looking at bankruptcy," she said. "No," I agreed. "I'm looking at choreography." Her mouth curved faintly. "I knew I liked you." I enlarged one of the donor matrices, highlighted the overlaps, the invisible employees. "Who funds these?" I asked. She went still. "Officially?" she said. "Philanthropic subsidiaries, health initiatives, community bioresearch. And, unofficially?" She exhaled through her nose. "People who don't want their names attached." We were quiet for a moment. The numbers glowed between us. "They don't pay staff," I said slowly. "They route compensation through third-party medical stipends. They don't log resignations. They log resource depletion." Mara's jaw tightened. "That's been bothering me too." The door slid open again. Jonah hovered at the threshold, wringing his hands like they were responsible for everything. "You shouldn't be accessing donor channels," he said softly. "Those are above branch clearance." "I'm above branch clearance," I replied. He shook his head. "You're visible now." Mara straightened. Meaning someone in central compliance pinged my console," he said. "They were very interested in why your ID was pulling archive-grade records." "And?" I asked. "And they didn't ask what you were looking for," he said. "They asked who authorized you." A chill crept up my spine. "Patrick," he added quietly. "People don't protect numbers this carefully unless there's something behind them." I looked back at the screen, at the empty personnel columns, at the funds that went nowhere. "No," I said. "They protect them when there's someone behind them." And someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to make sure those someones no longer appeared at all. The alarm started as a vibration in the walls. Low, almost polite. Then the lights cut out. Not entirely. Emergency strips flared along the floor, washing the corridor in dim blue. Somewhere above us, metal groaned. The air pressure shifted, popping softly in my ears. I stopped walking. So did Richard. We were in one of the sealed research connectors, too narrow to be called a hall, too clean to feel human. Frosted panels lined both sides. No windows. No external access. "Power fluctuation," he said into his comm. Static answered. The doors behind us slid shut. The doors ahead didn't open. A soft mechanical chime sounded. Isolation protocol engaged. I let out a slow breath. "Your building is very dramatic," I said. "Not usually," Richard replied. Another vibration ran through the structure. The floor shuddered under our feet, just enough to unsettle balance. Emergency lights dimmed further. He tried his comm again. Nothing. The space felt smaller immediately. Sound thickened. The faint sterile scent of the corridor layered with something warmer, sharper. The same unfamiliar note that had made my body misfire days earlier. Richard shifted. I felt it before I saw it. The air around him changed. Subtle, like pressure before thunder. His shoulders tensed, spine straightening, breath deepening. His jaw set as if against pain. "Are you?" I began. "I'm fine," he said too quickly. Another tremor rolled through the walls. The blue light flickered. His control fractured. Not violently, not theatrically, but in the small betrayals of a body under strain. His pupils expanded. His breathing grew uneven. The faintest sound escaped his throat, cut off almost as soon as it appeared. "Richard," I said quietly. He turned his head a fraction, eyes unfocused. Instinctive response, he said. Containment systems run on frequencies. Most people don't register. And you do. I'm alpha, he said. Our sensory range is wider. The word alpha landed differently here. Not corporate, not performative, biological. Another surge of heat moved through me, answering something in him. My pulse tripped over itself. The air felt too warm for how cool the corridor should have been. He took one step back, then stopped himself. I don't like confined spaces, he admitted. The words sounded forced out. They interfere with your control? I finished. His mouth tightened. Yes. We stood less than a meter apart, the space between us alive with unspoken things. Fear threaded the air, but beneath it was something steadier. Recognition, maybe? Or the simple relief of not being alone. I don't like being used, I said. His gaze snapped to mine. Then we have that in common. The building creaked around us. Emergency systems hummed. Somewhere far away, something heavy reset. Whatever this place is, I said. It isn't failing. No, he agreed. It's feeding. The word hung between us. In the dim blue light, stripped of glass walls and titles and distance, he didn't look like a CEO. He looked like a man standing too close to something he didn't fully control. And for the first time since I arrived, I wasn't looking at him as the corporation's face. I was looking at him. The doors slid open with a hydraulic sigh. Neither of us moved right away, because in that sealed space, with systems failing and instincts exposed, something fragile had happened. We had met without our roles. The first door shouldn't have opened. The second absolutely shouldn't have. At 1:43 in the morning, with most of the branch in sleep mode and security loops rerouting after the earlier systems glitch, I found myself standing in front of a maintenance terminal older than the rest of the building. Its screen was dim. Its interface stripped down. No branding. No welcome message. Just a blinking cursor. I hadn't planned to hack anything. I had planned to follow a discrepancy. Mara's badge got me past the outer seal. Jonah's login, typed from memory and guilt, broke the second layer. The third yielded only after I redirected the system to authenticate against a legacy server the branch technically no longer possessed. The terminal chimed. A directory unfolded. Not finance. Not logistics. Protocols. Cold slid into my stomach. The archive was housed in what had once been a laboratory block, abandoned according to every official map. The corridor lights flickered on as I approached, illuminating old safety signage and sealed glass doors webbed with hairline fractures. Inside, dust lay undisturbed on stainless steel counters, but the servers were warm, active. I accessed the core. Project lists scrolled past. Donor program. Adaptive resource pool. Behavioral stability trials. My fingers slowed. Contracts followed. Hundreds of them. All structured differently. All ending in the same place. Long-term bioallocation agreements. With people's names. Some redacted. Some numeric. Some replaced entirely by codes. Attached files opened automatically. Medical profiles. Stress tolerances. Olfactory responsiveness. Cognitive flexibility. And beneath them, operational beta criteria. I felt very still. Not metaphorical beta. Biological. The parameters filled the screen in neat, indifferent lines. Low aggression markers. High compliance thresholds. Accelerated emotional processing. Resistance to pheromonal destabilization. Elevated resilience to hierarchical pressure. Ideal for integration. Ideal for prolonged exposure. Ideal for destabilized environments. I scrolled. The program's internal designation appeared at the bottom of the page. OB model. Human interface class. My mouth had gone dry again. This time swallowing didn't help. A subfile blinked. Cross-reference. Current assets. The system populated the screen before I could stop it. Names. Medical IDs. Biometric matches. Behavioral compatibility. The nausea came suddenly, sharp and undeniable. I braced a hand against the metal desk as the room seemed to recede. There, highlighted in pale blue. Patrick Hale. Operational suitability, 97.3%. Exposure adaptation, optimal. Family transfer compliance, confirmed. The words swam. Family. Transfer. Compliance. I closed my eyes. Numbers. Files. Protocols. It wasn't one project. It was a framework. A model. And standing in the hum of an old server room that should have been empty, surrounded by the quiet architecture of someone else's design, I saw it. Not a conspiracy. A system. And in it, a space shaped exactly like me. I didn't go back to my apartment. I went up. The executive levels were quiet at that hour, lit only by ambient panels and the soft glow of the city leaking through glass. Richard's office door opened after a brief biometric scan. He was still there, jacket off, sleeves rolled, one screen active, scrolling compliance reports. He looked up as I entered, already alert. "What did you find?" he asked. I crossed the room and set the data crystal on his desk. "Something your systems didn't want me to." He slotted it in. The files unfolded in the air between us. Programs, donor frameworks, behavioral protocols. And then the criteria. Richard didn't interrupt. His stillness sharpened, the way it had in the isolation corridor. Focused, predatory, contained. When my name appeared, something in his expression broke. "What is this?" he asked slowly. "A model," I said. "Not a project. A design. Built around people like me." His eyes tracked the lines. "The parameters. The percentages. You're not listed as staff," he said. "You're listed as compatible infrastructure." I let out a breath that scraped on the way out. "My family's companies funded the pilot sectors," I said. "They didn't just sell the branch. They transferred biometric clearance. They handed over legal authority." I hesitated. "And personal access." Silence pressed down around us. "They didn't protect you," Richard said. "No," I replied. "They optimized me." Anger flickered across his face, real, unfiltered. "You were raised inside this," he said. "Prepared to function inside it." I nodded once. Every failing branch. Every dying company. I was sent to environments that mirrored the model's conditions. Stress. Collapse. Isolation. I wasn't cleaning messes. You were being conditioned. Yes. He straightened abruptly, pacing once across the glass-floored space like a caged thing. "My corporation absorbed the structure years ago," he said. "I shut down 3 research arms tied to donor exploitation. This was supposed to be buried," I offered. He stopped. "Yes." We stood there with the truth suspended between us, ugly and precise. "They expect silence," I said. "The contracts are built for it. The compensation channels, the legal fog. They expect compliance," he corrected. I met his gaze. "I'm very good at understanding systems," I said. "And very bad at living in them." A muscle worked in his jaw. "There will be consequences," he said. "If we open this, it will tear through my board, my partners, half the shell companies propping this structure up. And if we don't," I said, "it will keep eating people." He exhaled slowly. "Who do you belong to, Patrick?" he asked. The question struck deeper than I expected. I thought of contracts, of training, of all the rooms I had emptied for other people's convenience. "I don't know," I said. "But not them." He studied me for a long moment. Then, without a word, he crossed to the glass doors and opened them. Cold night air swept in. The roof stretched wide and empty, the city blazing below like a circuit board. He stepped out. So did I. "We can dismantle it," he said. Not quietly, not cleanly, but thoroughly. I closed my eyes once, steadying myself against the wind. "Then we should start," I said, "before they decide to move me somewhere I won't come back from." His hand extended between us. Not a CEO's gesture, a man's. I took it. And, together, we chose to break the machine. They moved faster than I expected. The meeting request arrived less than 12 hours after we accessed the archive. Mandatory attendance, central compliance, medical and legal present. The room they chose wasn't glass. It was buried, windowless, circular, lit from above by a ring of white that erased shadows and depth alike. No corners, nowhere for the eye to rest. A containment space disguised as a boardroom. 6 people sat waiting when I entered. 2 from legal, 1 from medical oversight. I didn't recognize, dressed in the kind of neutrality that pretends not to be power. Richard was not there, not yet. Patrick Hale, one of them said. You've accessed protected donor infrastructure without authorization. I had authorization, I replied. From the executive level. They exchanged brief looks. Which executive? Richard Vale. That earned me the first real reaction. Mr. Vale is not cleared for those systems, medical oversight said. They fall under legacy research jurisdiction. So you're saying, I said, your secret departments outrank your CEO. Another glance. Another recalibration. Sit down, legal said. I didn't. We have concerns about your recent physiological incidents, medical continued. Combined with your family's involvement in early-stage donor integration, it raises questions about your stability. My mouth went dry. You've exhibited signs of sensory dysregulation, she went on. Elevated temperature, olfactory hallucinations, loss of balance. Not hallucinations, reactions. We're authorizing a temporary medical hold, legal added. For your protection, 2 orderlies stepped forward. The room shrank. The lights felt too close. The air too thin. My heart slammed against my ribs. Too loud, too fast. Like it was trying to escape without me. No, I said. The word barely made it out. Heat surged. The same copper-bright pressure. The edges of the room blurred. Sound warped into something underwater and distant. I tasted metal. Hands reached for my arms. I jerked back. Don't. My breath fractured. This was how it happened. Not chains. Paperwork. Not force. Process. A scream tore out of me before I realized it had formed. Sharp. Raw. Animal. Step away from him. Richard's voice cut through the room like a blade. He stood in the doorway, expression carved from something far colder than anger. No medical hold has been authorized, he said. Not by me. And nothing happens in this building without my approval. He's compromised, medical said quickly. He's emotionally involved. Richard walked forward, placed himself between me and the orderlies. Then so am I, he said. Silence detonated. He accessed systems. Legal began. I ordered him to, Richard said. And I'll personally handle any internal inquiry into my own directives. His gaze swept the table. This meeting is over. You can't simply. I can, he said. And I am. He turned slightly. Patrick, he said quietly. Come with me. My legs felt distant, unreliable. But he didn't reach for me. He didn't need to. The orderlies stepped back. No one stopped us. And as we walked out of that room, my pulse still roaring in my ears, one truth burned clearer than any contract I had ever signed. For the first time, Richard Vale had chosen a person over a structure. And he had done it where everyone could see. The call came from a private channel my family reserved for emergencies, which meant leverage. Richard let me use his secondary office. Smaller, darker, lined with one-way glass that reflected my own silhouette back at me. The city beyond it glimmered like a distant circuit board. Cold, orderly, indifferent. I stood. I didn't want to sit for this. My mother's face appeared first. Calm, immaculate. Behind her, my uncle leaned against a desk I recognized from childhood boardrooms. Power had a way of furnishing itself. Patrick, she said. We need to resolve this situation. Do we? I asked. Her eyes flicked briefly. Someone was feeding her information in real time. You've overstepped, she continued. You accessed restricted corporate research, interfered with Vale's internal operations, and exposed yourself to regulatory attention. This jeopardizes not only you but the family's interests. There it is, I said softly. She sighed, as if disappointed. You were placed where you could be useful, she said. Where your temperament, your adaptability, your biological profile could protect you. The programs you've seen were designed to ensure people like you survived unstable environments. By being optimized for them, I said. By being owned by them. My uncle leaned forward. You're emotional, he said. That's understandable. But this arrangement gave you purpose, resources, protection. I laughed once. It surprised all of us. You sent me into collapsing systems since I was 22, I said. Every time something was too contaminated, too public, too politically inconvenient, you called me. You told me I was strong. You told me I was necessary. I swallowed. You never told me I was allowed to leave. My mother's voice cooled. We are offering you an exit, she said. Return. Publicly distance yourself from Veil Consolidated. Sign a non-disclosure reaffirmation. Medical oversight will be handled privately. An ultimatum. Come home. Disappear quietly. Be managed. I won't, I said. Silence stretched. You don't understand what you're rejecting, my uncle said. I do, I replied. I'm rejecting a system that taught me to confuse usefulness with worth. My hands were trembling now, not violently, but honestly. You didn't protect me, I said. You invested in me. Patrick, my mother warned. No, I said. This ends. Her eyes hardened. If you continue, she said, you will be cut off, legally, financially, medically. Every structure you've relied on was built to own me, I finished. So take it. For a moment, no one spoke. Then she straightened her shoulders. As you wish, she said. We will consider you released. The word struck harder than any insult. The screen went dark. My reflection remained. A man in a glass room, breathing, shaking, and strangely, lighter. I pressed my palm against the cool surface and closed my eyes. They hadn't lost a son. They had lost an asset. And I had lost a cage. The ache in my chest didn't vanish. But beneath it was something new. Space. We didn't leak the data. We detonated it. The core servers were housed 3 levels below the oldest laboratory wing, in a temperature-controlled vault that hummed like a mechanical heart. Richard walked beside me, jacket back on, expression stripped down to something cold and precise. Once this goes live, he said, there's no controlling the narrative. Good, I replied. It deserves to be ugly. Mara waited at the access panel, jaw tight, fingers already moving. Jonah stood behind her, pale but determined, holding a legal buffer key that could stall internal shutdowns for exactly 9 minutes. After that, he said, they can try to bury it. They won't have time, Richard said. The doors parted. Cold air spilled out, carrying the sterile scent of metal and ozone. Rows of server towers stretched into dimness, status lights blinking like distant cities. I slotted in the external drive. The system hesitated. Then, upload initiated. Data streams bloomed across the central display. Protocols, contracts, donor frameworks, internal memos, video files, everything. Simultaneously, Richard's command went out across executive channels, regulatory boards, and 3 independent oversight agencies. A controlled collapse. Alarms began to rise in pitch. They've locked Central, Mara said. Internal compliance is panicking. They should, I replied. On the upper floors, offices erupted into movement. Doors slid open. Security teams redeployed. Screens flickered as systems fought for hierarchy. Richard's comm vibrated. Board override attempt, he said. They're trying to cut power to the lower sectors. Jonah? Mara snapped. Buffers holding, Jonah said, hands shaking over the console. 8 minutes. The building shuddered faintly as emergency partitions dropped. Through a distant window panel, I saw the city below. Wet streets reflecting neon, unaware that a corporate giant was bleeding out above it. My pulse roared in my ears. 6 minutes. The first external confirmation arrived. Regulatory acknowledgement. Then another. Then a third. Public mirrors are live, Mara said. On one of the floating screens, a news crawler ignited. Whistleblower files implicate Veil Consolidated in illegal bioallocation programs. 5 minutes. Jonah whispered. Security burst into the server hall. Not our guards. Theirs. Orders barked. Weapons raised. Richard stepped forward. Stand down, he said, voice carrying without effort. They hesitated. Their comms were lighting up. Too many channels. Too many contradictory commands. The structure that told them who to listen to was tearing itself apart in real time. One of them lowered his weapon. Then another. Then the room filled with the sound of incoming authority. External, unmistakable. Enforcement. Upload complete, Mara said. The servers chimed. Somewhere in the building, something essential shut down. On screen, the first arrest warrants populated. Directors, researchers, shell executives, assets froze. Accounts collapsed. The donor frameworks went dark. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. Richard looked at me. Not as a CEO, not as a strategist. As a man watching something he had built burn because it should. Outside, sirens stitched the night. The machine had been opened, and it was finally dying. The morning after felt unreal. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just quiet. The branch no longer buzzed. No layered security fields. No whispered comms. No controlled chaos masquerading as productivity. Whole floors were dark. I stood alone in what had once been the central operations office. Desks cleared. Screens black. The polished floor reflected a pale rectangle of dawn, where the sun crept through the tall windows. My reflection looked thinner somehow. On the far wall, one screen still functioned, cycling through muted news feeds. Multi-agency investigation launched. Vale Consolidated stock halted. Illegal bioallocation network exposed. Headlines bled into one another. Faces of men and women I'd seen only on internal documents now filled public space. Escorted, questioned, named. The branch was officially closed before noon. A notice appeared in every remaining system channel. Operations suspended, access revoked. Staff to report to transitional services. Former employees drifted through the halls collecting personal effects. Some hugged. Some stared. Some laughed too loudly. Mara found me by the windows. They're reassigning what's left of us, she said. Third-party mediation teams. Trauma processing. Financial restitution. Her mouth curved faintly. Turns out when you stop pretending people are numbers, you owe them things. Jonah stood a few steps behind her, clutching a cardboard box like it might escape. I'm unemployed, he said wonderingly. I've never been unemployed. Congratulations, Mara said. You're free. He looked terrified. So did I. By mid-morning, enforcement teams had sealed the lower research wings. The old lab corridors vanished behind portable partitions. Evidence crews moved through spaces that no longer pretended to be offices. Richard hadn't come down. Not yet. The branch felt like a shell after a tide recedes. Too big for what remained. The air carried the sterile ghost of systems that had powered down and would never restart. I sat on the edge of an empty desk. No schedule. No assignment. No crisis to manage. The absence was loud. Strangely, it didn't hurt the way I'd expected. It felt like standing in the aftermath of a storm, when everything ugly had been torn up by the roots and all that remained was wreckage and sky. Loss, yes, but also room. And in the quiet of a building that no longer owned me, I didn't know who I was supposed to be next. But for the first time, I wasn't being told. The new office smelled like coffee, printer ink, and optimism that hadn't learned to be cautious yet. It was small. One large window. 3 desks that didn't match. A couch someone had rescued from a co-working lounge, because it felt sad being alone. Potted plants lined the sill, all slightly different shades of stubborn green. I paid for it with money that had no family name attached. That still felt strange. Mara took the desk closest to the window. Jonah claimed the one with the worst chair because, according to him, I deserve consequences. 2 former branch analysts worked remotely, helping rebuild displaced records and track restitution cases. We weren't a company. We were a repair crew. My role wasn't to shut anything down. It was to design frameworks that didn't erase the people inside them. That part terrified me. The first client was a woman who had spent 6 years in a donor program she hadn't understood. We helped her untangle contracts, locate compensation channels, connect with legal and medical support. She cried. So did Jonah. Mara pretended not to, but her mascara betrayed her. At lunch, we sat on the office floor with takeout containers and argued about whether noodles technically counted as soup. They absolutely do, Jonah insisted. Emotionally, they're confused pasta, Mara said. Don't project. I watched them and felt something warm settle under my ribs. Later, I walked back from a supply run to find Richard leaning against the doorframe, coat slung over one shoulder, expression unfamiliar. Not controlled. Unsure. I didn't know if you'd want me to come by, he said. I don't know either, I replied honestly. That earned me a quiet smile. We got coffee from a place downstairs that spelled my name wrong on principle. We stood outside in the mild afternoon, paper cups steaming, city noise folding around us. You look different, he said. So do you. He glanced at the sign over the door. You're building something. I'm trying not to break it, I said. That's new. So is not being owned. The word hung between us, then softened. We didn't touch. We didn't need to. We walked, talked about unimportant things, food, architecture, a dog that had learned to ride the subway alone, normal. It felt like learning a language I'd been denied. That evening, back in the little office, I pinned our first handwritten mission statement to the wall. Not for profit, for people. And in the soft light of a space that didn't belong to any machine, I realized something quietly miraculous. I wasn't dismantling ruins anymore. I was learning how to make foundations. The office looked different at night, softer. The city pressed its lights against the windows like a quiet audience. Only 2 lamps were on, casting warm circles across mismatched furniture and stacks of half-organized case files. Everyone else had gone. I was reviewing a draft policy outline when I felt, rather than heard, Richard's presence. He stood near the window, jacket folded over a chair, sleeves rolled, the city reflecting faintly in the glass behind him. You keep the worst lighting, he said. I keep the honest lighting, I replied. It doesn't pretend things are finished. He considered that. So, he said, how does it feel to build something without an exit plan? Terrifying, I answered. Strangely addictive. We were quiet for a moment. Then he spoke again, slower. The investigation committee asked me yesterday what I planned to do next, and I told them I didn't know. That surprised me. You, I said, not knowing. I've always defined myself by what I controlled, he said. Risk, infrastructure, systems. If something moved, it was because I had permitted it. He met my eyes. You don't move that way. I swallowed. My instincts don't either, he continued. Around you, they don't align with hierarchy. They don't want command. They want... He hesitated. Presence. The word settled gently between us. I'm afraid, I admitted. Of me? Of what happens when I stop being useful, I said. When I stop being a function. When I choose something that doesn't come with terms. He stepped closer. Not crowding. Choosing. I'm afraid, he said, that I don't know how to want someone without trying to protect them into a structure. That sounds exhausting. It is. We stood near the window now, the glass cool against my shoulder. I could feel the heat of him without touching. The familiar, strange awareness stirred again, but this time, it didn't overwhelm. It listened. I don't want to be owned, I said quietly. I don't want to own, he replied. I want to decide. Every day. I turned fully toward him. So do I. The city reflected us faintly in the glass. 2 silhouettes. No titles. He lifted a hand. Stopped. Waited. The respect in the pause undid something in my chest. I closed the distance, not rushed, not claimed, chosen. His breath caught softly as our foreheads brushed. His hand settled at my waist, warm, steady, as if asking permission even in touch. Patrick, he said, not as a name on a contract. As a person. I tilted my head and kissed him. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't consuming. It was deliberate. A beginning, not a taking. When we parted, he rested his forehead against mine, eyes closed. Not an asset, he murmured. I smiled. Not a hierarchy. Just us. And the space we were learning to build together. Morning found the office already awake. Sunlight spilled through open windows, carrying the city in with it. Distant traffic, voices, the faint, hopeful clatter of a bakery downstairs setting out trays. The plants on the sill leaned toward the light like they trusted it. Jonah was arguing with the coffee machine. It knows I'm tired, he accused. It's doing this on purpose. It's an appliance, Mara said, stealing his cup. It doesn't respect you. I relate to it, he said mournfully. I set a bag of pastries on the desk and watched them with a soft, private smile. Richard stood near the window, jacket draped over a chair, sleeves rolled, sunlight cutting warm lines across his shoulders. He looked lighter, not untethered, just no longer anchored to something rotten. You named the project yet? He asked. I did, I said. He raised a brow. Should I be afraid? Possibly. I handed him the slim folder. On the cover, in my handwriting, failing air. He read it, then looked up. That's bold. It's accurate, I said. I failed to inherit what they wanted me to be, and succeeded at becoming what? I considered the room, the people, the mismatched furniture, the files that contained names instead of numbers. A person, I said. Mara snorted. Jonah applauded sarcastically. Truly revolutionary, Jonah said. Human being achieves humanity. We ate breakfast perched on desks and windowsills. Coffee burned. Pastries flaked everywhere. Someone played music too softly. The city moved on outside, indifferent and beautiful. Richard's shoulder brushed mine. Not possessive, familiar. Do you ever miss it? He asked quietly. The structure, the certainty. I thought of glass rooms, contracts, my name listed between equipment and debt. No, I said. I miss who I thought I had to be. He nodded. Good, he said. I didn't like him very much. I laughed. It surprised me how easily it came. As the morning settled into the office like it intended to stay, I felt something steady beneath the warmth. Not usefulness, not obligation, belonging. I had been raised to inherit failures, to close them, to vanish inside them. Instead, I had failed to become what they designed, and in that failure, I had finally begun to live.